If you're watching this video and you're not used to being on this platform, then welcome to this platform. And this is just simply, there's no way to put this video on YouTube. There's no free speech. You can follow me on this platform also. I duplicate content, though occasionally this platform will get something that YouTube doesn't. Either way though, you should still sub to me on this, because if you want to have any kind of thinking outside of what is part of the approved narrative, you're going to have to watch things like Rumble or BitChute to get that information. Bombshells are no longer bombshells. What do I mean by that? I'm going to look at just the last couple of months. Okay? And we're also going to remember right away that we're going to discredit stuff that people say are bombshells just because they're trying to, essentially clickbait. Things that are actual bombshells, that should be revolutionary, that should be a huge deal, everyone should be talking about, should be trending on all social media, mainstream media should be covering it. That's a bombshell. And it should be obviously it should be substantiatable or of enough public interest where seeking that substantiation should be what's on everybody's mind. I'm not even going back for the entire year, just going back the last couple of months. We have had some incredible bombshell revolutions, and I've just realized that they don't mean anything anymore. COVID has a 99% survival rate. A lot of people seem to be forgetting this, and they seem to be forgetting this over and over again, like the movie Memento, where they have no memory. COVID has a 99% survival rate, man, 99%. So even now with new strains that people are afraid the vaccine isn't going to work on, or they might have had COVID once, now they might get it again, it's still a 99% survival rate. So it still comes down to comorbidity and everything. So number two, COVID came from China. I mean, seriously, like, this was talked about in the beginning of the year by our president. He repeated it many times, and it seems somewhere in the late summer coming up to the election, he just kind of abandoned consistently calling it the Chinese virus. I think he just was like, man, I've told people that this was from China and this was China's fault so many times. If they don't know by now, there are new reports that China has now said publicly, yeah, we've actually had a ton of cases that we haven't talked about. It's been out of control in several areas in China. At least they specifically talked about Wuhan. Yeah, it definitely came from here. Well, that's not a surprise to anybody who's been paying attention, but that should be a bombshell for the mainstream media, for Twitter, and for all kinds of other people, but nothing. Number three, woke culture, cancel culture, media bias, and corporation political endorsements. This should be huge news, that going forward as an American from now on, you have to be concerned about people's perception of you. Doesn't matter. I mean, this essentially goes against all the things that we've been taught our entire lives, all the things that I think a lot of people have probably taught their children going back generations. But, you have to please yourself. You have to be happy with yourself, be proud of yourself. Don't worry what other people think of you. It almost goes into like bullying. Like, if somebody bullies you, who cares what they think? Or if people pick on you at school, who cares if they got together and made some jokes about you because of some incident? Like, that's not important. What's really important is who you are inside and what you believe. Well, now we seem to be telling people to do exactly the opposite of this, intentionally, as if it's their responsibility. Now you better be damn sure that everybody knows exactly what you mean by everything, what you think about every topic, and if you don't, you can get canceled. Which could mean anything from being fired from a job for something that you said while you were not at work, to people that have nothing to do with the field that you're in, to not posting a political opinion in an area where there should be no political opinion. But just the absence of you saying anything means that you've taken a side. It's ridiculous. I would point to what happened just a day or two ago with Walmart Walmart's main Twitter account with the blue check mark came out and made a comment about the electoral college and how Republicans are trying to waste time by talking about and not accepting electoral votes. Walmart, you're a corporation. What does any business, I don't care if it's a small cookie store or if it's a huge corporation like Walmart, what does any business have a political opinion for? Why should a business have a political opinion? Do you open your doors and say Democrats only allowed to spend money here, or Republicans only, or any other fucking thing? I mean, isn't that kind of the same as saying whites only or blacks only or any other thing? Why would you trumpet your political opinion? Additionally, there's no way that a company, once it has a lot of employees, even if it has 10 employees, it would be hard. But there's certainly no way a company with 500 employees or 200,000 employees could ever say everybody who works for our company thinks exactly the same, therefore we're going to tout and broadcast our political opinion. Now, Walmart did retract that later. They blamed it on a person who was, quote, in charge of their social media accounts. But that's funny, because while it may be true that a person on their team took a step where they weren't supposed to go, it doesn't change the fact that you trusted somebody with that kind of ideology to be in that position in the first place. How about this? A portion of the people who are in control of the corporate aspect of the decision making feel. And you know what? That stinks. Really. I already don't like Walmart. I've already got issues with some of the stuff that they've done to this country, the way that they've beat up the system and take money. But I've got yet another reason to not shop there. Fuck your apology and your retraction. It means shit. You're shit. Your fucking store sucks. Your employees fucking suck because you don't know how to hire people. I mean, you can go into a Walmart and have a positive experience, but if you do, you are probably in a very rural area. If you go anywhere in a suburb or in a city Walmart, you can go through 5 employees before you find one that's decent, that can actually help you, that doesn't act too busy, doesn't ignore you, doesn't act like they have a fucking attitude, etc. Walmart, you suck. You suck. The fact that we have this kind of media bias, the fact that we have this kind of corporate bias, the fact that we have this woke and cancel culture, this is a bombshell story in itself. This should be on the forefront. And yes, there are some people that talk about it, but the ones that talk about it are called the bad people. They're the crybabies. They're the people who are, by default, an ist or an ism. Racist, sexist, etc. They're all, automatically, if you talk about it, you're bad. So this, yes, should be a bombshell, and it's ignored. Number 4, commie agents worldwide. A list of 2 million communist supporters and agents was found. A list written by the CCP government. This should be that list, everything on that list that wasn't in English, besides the names, and every other language in the world, but for us, English. That list should be translated immediately, and not only should everyone in the government be studying that list and following through on every single name on that list of American citizens or people that are in America. Not only should that be being done, that list should be leaked in totality, at least after the point of national security, but that list should be given to the public. That thing in its totality should be in the public. And they talked about it like a little whisper, like a little hint, and that was it. It's gone. A fucking bombshell. This is a bombshell. Eric Swalwell goes with number 4, but that guy by itself, with his Chinese operative Fang Fang or Fing Fing or whatever she called herself, Susie or Debbie. She was fucking this dude, and she had somebody else that she placed high in his office, and this guy's in charge of like defense. That's a bombshell, man. That's important to everybody. What happened with that? They talked about it on the news like a day or two, and then it's just like, is this guy in prison? Is he for being a traitor? Is he in prison, been debriefed, already issued a public apology, and has to serve some prison time, starting now awaiting trial, which I think for that you would actually get like military trial, so it'd be like right away because it's treason. The media's not even talking about it. Number 6, not to sound like the right-wing media, but dude, Hunter laptop, okay? I don't know any other way to put this except that, there are some things as an adult child that you just don't tell your parents, for sure. You don't generally, you don't go discuss like all of your sexual proclivities with your mommy and your daddy, right? And you don't discuss etc., etc., going down the line in a relationship where the parents and the children still communicate, right? So ignore people that don't. Just saying, in general, in a parent-child relationship with an adult child, sure, there are certain things that would make exemptions, but overall, there is no way that the parent doesn't know certain things about the child. And even if you take all of the implication to Joe Biden out of it, which I see absolutely no reason to take any implication about Joe Biden out of it, especially since some of the emails that were on there had something to do with meetings for the big guy. But even if you take that out of it, man, what Hunter Biden did was definitely nepotism and probably violated some business ethics and corporate law. It was most certainly, though we need to see all the evidence in totality, most certainly treasonous. And then additionally, on a side note, when it comes to drugs, and let me just say it this way, if you have a reputation for drugs, you go to custody court, right? And one of you is a drug addict where you have had even one single arrest, even years ago, but especially if it's any time recent, nobody's listening to you. You've got no validity. Everything you say is like, meh. In fact, sometimes they won't even let you talk, right? You're not going to win. So when you got somebody who has got this kind of a drug problem, first of all, his ability to defend himself pretty much goes out the window, at least according to how courts work, because they don't take people seriously when they got a drug issue. Then, moving past that and ignoring the business ethics and treason stuff, just looking at the drugs and the sex. Dude, you're fucking your sister-in-law, daughter-in-law, whatever the fuck, or daughter, niece. Man, that shit's weird. I mean, reality? No, that's not something you do. And again, that's not the kind of thing you would necessarily report to your fucking parents. But when it is at the level that you're getting high, you're doing it frequently, you've got a porn account that you are uploading the shit to, possibly even some of the shit with some of, not even one, because there was actually a second one, some of your relatives, people who are underage. I mean, just, dude, the list goes on. There is nothing about what was found on his laptop that isn't a bombshell unto itself. And the whole thing, even though it did get a tiny bit of traction in the beginning, then got silenced, and now post-election is, there's some kind of investigation, but that's about it. There's really no other talk about that, man. There's no other follow-through on that. And I mean, I hate to sound like right-wing media, but dude, if fucking Melania Trump, do you think that the media would give Donald Trump any peace about that? You think they'd say, this is a private affair, it's a family affair, the daughter did it, the dad? Do you think that something like that would happen? Or you say the same thing about fucking Eric or Don Jr.? You think that would, and there were pictures of it, you think that'd be let go? That's not the same kind of example. Yeah, it is the same kind of example. It is. This dude is fucking his relative, man. Underage, couple of relatives, a couple of underage people, constantly smoking fucking meth, or crack, or both. It looked like a meth pipe to me, but whatever. And that's just the tiny little kernel that the public has seen. No, that's a bombshell. And although I don't hate on a person for having certain types of issues, you sacrifice a part of your liberty, though, when you do that kind of shit. When you're like, listen, I'm going to smoke crack all the time. I'm going to have a fuck ton of sex with people, especially people that I shouldn't be fucking having sex with. When that happens, then at the same time, you also have to give up part of your liberty. You can't also be the head of a corporation or a morality figurehead or related to somebody who's going to be the president. You can't. You have to give up. Somewhere in there, there's some give. Your behavior can be tolerated with or without a fucking apology, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. So yeah, that was a bombshell and a fucking joke. But I'm just saying, that's how ridiculous limitations on freedom of speech are. Especially to me, 1,000 times to me. I think they should be that way for everybody, though. You're not required to listen to somebody talk, especially in an example where it's on a format like YouTube platform. You know, you might have to deal with somebody saying something you don't like when you're in public, walking past them, when you tolerate freedom of speech. But other than that, all this other shit is your choice. So if you really don't like what somebody's saying, you can always, well, how'd that song go? Turn the channel, walk away, close cover, remember what is it? Remember, in everything you do, the choice is up to you. What the fuck is that from? That's something from my childhood I remember. I don't know. I probably should edit that out. Things from my child. Anyways, but that's the truth, though. You have the choice to just not pay attention when you don't like something. That's how freedom of speech works. You just can't go over every single thing, like I said, but the evidence is there. And talk about a bombshell. This is like one of the biggest bombshells of like the decade. I mean, this is just, it's unbelievable. Number 8 is the annual budget. And I said that I did a video about the budget, and I had said what a fortunate mistake that they decided to bundle the Corona stimulus with the annual budget, because I remember the last time that I actually got to put eyes on what an annual budget was, and it blew my mind, and I said, how the fuck can this happen every year? And now the public has seen it, and there's enough people in the public that are outraged about it that something has to happen. I'm afraid that a lot of people want something to happen, but they're not going to do anything or make any move to make anything happen unless Trump wins, unless Trump retains the presidency. So if he doesn't, they'll be like, it's like a hopeless, there's no chance. And if he does, then it'll still take super strong movement to really attack and change the way that politics is done in Washington. But man, that budget was an abomination. The simplest comments about it are really the most true. Why are we giving money to any other country when our country's having such problems right now? You know, and honestly, there's 8, and I think they're all huge. You know, you could talk about the Nashville terrorist attack as a huge bombshell too, but they wrapped that up in a neat little bow after 2 days. They tried to put it on a single person who was depressed. Some of the facts that have come out about that to fit the narrative are just asinine. No logical thinking human being could believe that this guy, I mean, just the fact that he built a device that did this, that he apparently, some people said he built it in the RV in the time that he was sitting there. Just everything about this is crazy. There was no crater, yet it wasn't an energy weapon or something else. It was actually just a bomb. It doesn't happen. He was in front of the AT&T building because his daddy used to work for AT&T. Therefore, that was the place that his depression took him. He sat there for hours and hours before even starting his recording, and further stayed in the vehicle the whole time, sitting next to the bomb or assembling it, then played a message. I mean, this whole thing it's the bombshell. And, you know, they're done with it. They got their usefulness out of it. They're done with it. No talk about the servers. No talk about the potential Dominion machines that were actually sitting at the location. And no talk about the servers in Sandguard and what that and the NSA and what that location does, aside from the AT&T. AT&T is like a cover story for... all of these things, man. Any one of these 8 things that I put on my list, 9 if you include Nashville, any one of these things is enough to keep the media cycle busy for a while. And if these stations had true investigative journalism, for any one of them to delve into these topics, they could keep them busy for quite a while. They could put out some incredible reporting on it if they tried. If you go back to my number 3, the woke culture, cancel culture, and media bias, how can they? Even if they wanted to go after some of these people, would they be allowed? I mean, would they be given any access? Obviously, when you do investigative reporting, you have to do stuff where, without permission, you seek information. Even if they were willing to do this, they would get no cooperation from anybody. They would get their own version of cancel. Any one reporter that worked for these networks that's like, man, this network is super shitty and leans one way or always reports stuff one way, but I want to try to do something different. I'll take the resources that I'm allowed to use because I'm some kind of field reporter, and I will bring them this story once I break it. You think that they're allowed to do that? bombshells no longer mean anything, and that should be concerning to everybody. Especially at the same time where we see that propaganda is now the way to go when it comes to making people do what you want. Propaganda rules all. The narrative rules all. All you have to do is repeat it enough, control enough sources that do the broadcasting of quote-unquote fucking news, and you control everything, and that's how it's going to be from now on. That is the Great Reset. It's just this way, this is the new normal, this way going forward. That's exactly what that means now. Propaganda now rules the day. Freedom of speech is dead, it just doesn't know it yet. And bombshells that don't fit the narrative mean absolutely nothing. Happy New Year.